Well, good morning. The Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund continues to have a major impact in Upper Michigan. And this year it's celebrating its 40th anniversary. We're going to talk about that and a lot more, including deer hunting, with Natural Resource Commissioner J.R. Richardson. It starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Now, here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, J.R. Richardson is the longest-serving member of the Michigan Natural Resources Commission. He was first appointed by Governor Jennifer Granholm in 2007, and his most recent reappointment was by Governor Snyder in 2014. He's a lifelong Yooper from Ontonagon, Michigan Tech graduate, worked in the paper industry for many years, and is currently in the power industry in White Pine. Welcome back to the Ryan Report.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
Did you survive the winter, which maybe isn't over yet?
Well, I couldn't believe I was watching Carl Bonak the other day. He said April had the most snow we had in every month all year. It's a little long, but we've all survived it okay.
And here's something else you might want to know. We've had a lot of snow in April. It's around 40 inches here.
Right.
The record is 83.
In April?
In April.
Oh my goodness.
So who knows what's to come?
No whimpering?
No.
And I like to, congratulate TV6 on their 60th anniversary, as long as we're talking about anniversaries. So
well, that's great.
Congratulations, TV6.
Yeah. And despite what people think, I wasn't here.
I didn't say
on the
that.
first day, but I was here a while later. We actually went on the air in 1956. I think I started here in 1965.
Well,
so.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Good to have you with us again. Let's talk a little bit about this Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund, because it really can do some good things for the Upper Peninsula.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the 40th anniversary. I did a little bit of history, and it goes back to 1976, obviously, to get to the 50th anniversary. But it started out much smaller in those days, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the original cap on it was $5 million, and the whole idea was to take revenues from the oil and gas and the minerals and put them into a trust fund where you could buy parks and endowment for the state of Michigan to basically do purchases and or support the purchases in the long run. The original cap on it was $5 million in the 70s, and now it's $500 million, so it says a little bit about how it's grown. And it was pretty controversial in the beginning because they were talking about oil and gas revenues, and they didn't have a lot of oil and gas, wells in the Lower Peninsula at that time. So you can see how, what something controversial and like a non-renewable resource being pulled out of the ground can do for a renewable resource in the state of Michigan. So.
And in this age and with the future possibilities, those funds could continue to grow even larger. And many of these are all kind of institutionalized. In many cases, the public voted for some of the amendments that were made to reinforce the fund and make those changes in the fund as time went on.
Yeah, they were all supported by and went through the constitutional amendments, which means that people in the state of Michigan could see the value of the Natural Resource Trust Fund, and they voted to support it. So when you have something like that, you're doing the right thing. So it's really something where where the legislation and the Constitution has done the right thing, and it's really benefited the state. So
I think we have a couple of graphics we might be able to look at here. Yeah, this is really the important one. This kind of tells us what's happened over the years. And we can see it's had a major impact on development and acquisition.
Well, you talk about probably over 2,000 projects and $1 billion in expenditures. I mean, you're going to make a difference with something like that. And I mean, we're very, very proud to have put ourselves in a position where we could do that and then go through the Natural Resource Trust Fund to put the money in the right place at the right time.
And I was looking this year. It appears that in the UP, for example, I think it's over $2 million combined between the two funds.
Yeah.
Between the funds.
Yeah, I think the fund was $28 million, and I think was over $2 million came to the Upper Peninsula. And I know a big one was Douglas Houghton Falls in the up in the Houghton area, and and I know we bought some habitat area, and we have a huge emphasis on the Heritage Trail. The Iron Ore Heritage Trail, and it always amazed me. I'd go into Wisconsin or Minnesota, and you think about all the snowmobiles we get. During snowmobile season, a lot of people run their businesses just off of snowmobiles, and one of the things we'd like to see in Michigan is have the ATVs, follow up with the snowmobiles and have trails into all the little communities in the Upper Peninsula and have that economy boosted by that instead of having a 3-month snowmobile season, have a 12-month-a-year ATV season with the tracks and the just the wheeled vehicles to really support our little communities. And part of the problem is easements and who owns what land and how you get in there. And a lot of the trust fund money, and the governor has definitely supported us in the Iron Belt Trail in Michigan to say, hey, we want to be the trail state,
Right.
and we're spending money and we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're developing that. And I would say to the communities around here, because I never thought I'd see the day where I'd be in Ironwood, Michigan, with the governor of Michigan kicking off a trail, in Ironwood. I mean, it was just a beautiful thing. So if people are having trouble with their, getting their easements and getting people into their communities, I would have them call us up and we can work with them to try to see what we can do to help fund and or work through their easements and their legal problems.
I noticed a number of the grants this year do relate to trails. We should probably point out to people that there's kind of two, some are for development and some are for acquisition.
Some, it's split between acquisition and funding the acquisition. So what you don't want to do is, purchase a house and not have money to have maintenance
Right.
to put into that home. So the whole idea was to not only to purchase things, but have money for PILT taxes as an example. Or, we've done anything from athletic fields, the marinas, the, rebuilding Michigan State parks. So, I mean, whole idea is not only do you have to build something, you have to have the money to support it. So
I know in Marquette, for example, they're going to be doing some things to make the Father Marquette statue area park more accessible to
Right.
people. So just, there are many different opportunities. I think people have to apply to the
to the trust fund
the
grant.
trust fund.
Yeah, and we've actually had programs on how can I get the grant money, and
Right.
we've had those in the Upper Peninsula and we've had them downstate. And I would say the easiest way to do is contact your local DNR people or Stacy Welling up here and say, hey, I'd like to apply for this grant, or John Pepin, and say, and how do I do it and how do I go about it? Because the whole idea is, what good is a grant program if the average people can't apply for the grant? You don't only want the people that have professional grant writers getting the grants. You want, the people that can really benefit and make sure the grants go in the right places. So.
Okay. Well, they've done amazing things around the UP over these 40 years. So.
Oh yeah, it's putting the money in the right place and doing the right things with the funds that come from things that normally oil and gas revenues. Think about it. I mean, in '76 when they first did that, I'm sure there were a lot of people that had a lot of different views on that, and look at what it's turned into. So.
Okay. We've got to take a break. Back with more on the Ryan Report in just 2 minutes. Okay, we're talking with J.R. Richardson, and we were talking before we took the break about the Natural Resources Trust Fund. Before we leave that, it does have some real positive economic benefits too, doesn't it?
It does, and one of the things that we've been looking for and looking at is how are we going to benefit the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and the Northern Lower and the state of Michigan in general, but how are we going to use this to build the economy? And one of the things that we've been working with Michigan Tech, Michigan State, Northern Michigan is looking at traditional things like plastics and vehicles as an example, and how could we make that out of fibrous material? And one of the things, they're doing a lot of research, and it's called a Reforge project out of Michigan Tech, and we're looking at, how are we going to fund that and what are we going to do with that? And then we can take our state forest land, put the foresters to work, clean up the forest, make good habitat, and then build something that we're going to build cars for in Michigan. And I think that's extremely exciting. And, in the old days, it used to be we're going to work in a paper mill or we're going to work in a copper mine, and those days are behind us now. So we have to figure out new innovative ways to put our youth to work up here. And I think working with our natural resources is the way we can do that.
We do still have some mines going there too.
We do have
We
some
don't wanna
mines,
put
but
them out of
on the western end,
Right.
it's pretty.
I know.
Where I came from, I had 3,500 people working at the White Pine Mine.
Right.
400 people working at the paper mill, and 350 people working in the shipbuilding industry. So we're looking for ways, rather than ship our wood out of state, to keep our wood in state and put our people to work. So
Let's shift gears quickly. Deer hunting. What's the most positive thing coming out of the last deer season?
well, I think our UP, we talked before about our UP Habitat Work Group, and I think we had a mild winter, even though it didn't feel like it today or yesterday or all last week, but in general, the snow index is down and it wasn't freezing cold all spring or all winter. I think the deer came through it in pretty good shape. And also think, we've done a lot of work with, predators and predator hunts, and I think I'm talking specifically about a lot of coyote hunting, and we're looking at expanding the coyote hunting rules a little bit. I think that's going to come up in one of our next few commission meetings. So I think the deer and the population is going to take a while to recover, and there's no doubt about that because it was devastating. But you know, between what we did with the doe hunting last year, and we're also, you know, I mean, it's being talked about and is like looking at a no spike rule this year. I mean, it's come up in many of the different habitat meetings that I've gone to, and it's come up to in a lot of the whitetails meetings I've come to, where a lot of people are like, you know, why don't you just not allow us to shoot spikes for a year or two and see if we can rehab those year class of bucks. So
If you do change regulations for this year, when will that happen?
it'll happen in the next few months.
Okay.
So we have to do that so we can get it into the new program. So
But you haven't made those decisions
we have not
yet.
made those. I mean, I like to go to as many meetings in the Upper Peninsula as I can. I'll go anywhere from the safari clubs to the, you know, UPSA to the whitetails clubs and say, you know, what are you thinking about and what do you think we need and how do you think we can fix what we have, and then blend that with the biology and try to make the right decisions.
I know you were
So-
pleased with the safety this year.
I mean,
For 2
there's
years,
nothing to be more proud of than we had no fatalities in the state of Michigan 2 years in a row, and we only had one gun-related incident in the Upper Peninsula this year. And you know, I mean, to us, between the Hunters Education Program and Hunters Orange, and just people in general, just thinking about and being safe. I mean, there's nothing more important to us than, you know, bringing people home safe and giving them a good outdoor experience, but making darn sure that they come home safe. And I'd like to personally thank all the Hunters Education volunteers that teach those classes and teach the youth and, you know, bring our hunters home safe and sound, because there's nothing more important than that. So.
What about chronic wasting disease? How concerning is that becoming?
Well, they're finding it in northern Wisconsin, and they've found, you know, they've had some outbreak in the lower peninsula, most of it around Lansing, and it's something that we have to keep our eyes on. And, you know, if that comes to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, that's going to be, you know, we already have the resolutions in place that say there'll be no more baiting, and that's going to be highly controversial. So we have to look at, you know, chronic wasting disease is something that can devastate the deer population. I think, you know, they've had it where they've lost 70% of their deer. You know, winter's bad enough.
Right.
Then all of a sudden we got to stack on chronic wasting disease. I mean, you know, the deer have a tough road to hoe, but,
right,
you know, hopefully we can keep that out of the Upper Peninsula and, you know, do the right things to keep that out of here. And, you know, but if it comes, we're going to have to take some real aggressive action to make sure it doesn't spread. So.
Okay. We'll talk about some other subjects in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on the Ryan Report after this break. Talking with J.R. Richardson, Commissioner of Michigan Natural Resources. Before we leave deer hunting, you were talking about pay to play in some of our western states.
Well, you know, one of the things, and we were talking about the trust fund earlier in the program today, and one of the things that I think we have to keep track of and we have to be mindful of is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, how lucky we are to have, you know, a lot of non-posted land. And I've been to Montana. I spent a lot of time in Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho, and everywhere you go, there's nothing but no trespassing signs. And you know, if you're not one of the rich people that happens to own that land and access to that land, you're not going to be allowed on it. You're gonna have to pay to go on it, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. In the UP, most of the best property up here is either owned by the state, the Plum Creeks that roll through CFA land, or federal forests, so we have access to all the most beautiful places in our peninsula. And I think a lot of that came from the trust fund, a lot of it comes from the CFA rules, and a lot of it comes from the federal government. And our ability to walk around and not run into no trespassing signs, or somebody that says you can go duck hunting on my property, but it's going to cost you $1,000 for a week. Right. We don't have to deal with that. And it's just one of the true pleasures of being a Youper, is not having to run into that every time you turn around. And, you know, I think sometimes we take it for granted, but you don't have to go very far to know that that's not the way normal people get to access, you know, the outdoors where they live. So.
And we are working with private landowners to improve deer habitat as well, aren't we? And even providing some funding for that?
Yeah, we have the Deer Range Improvement Fund, where you get $1.50 off every license goes into a fund. It's called a DRIP fund. And we had just awarded $100,000 of that in the UP. And the whole idea behind the Deer Range Improvement grants were that you could sit with your local club in Ewan, Michigan, or in Delta County or Sault Ste. Marie, and you could write that up on the back of a napkin. It's It's like a 3-page grant proposal, and you can write that up with your friends. You don't need a professional grant writer. And we're giving out $100,000 this year in grants to 12 different projects, and they're going anywhere from planting apple trees, softwood conifers, to doing early succession where the deer come out of their yards. The first thing they see is something where it's it's a planter with clover and something for them to eat. And I think that it's been extremely popular. I think we had 27 different people this year ask for the grant for 12 different grants were awarded. And then in the state, in the big picture, we have $1 million program that, but I don't, we were talking about earlier today at a Habitat meeting that I don't believe any of that money's come to the UP yet. And most of the reason is because a lot of those bigger organizations get them because they have professional grant writers. So I'm going to work with the state and try to make those accessible to the average smaller group in the Upper Peninsula, because it's important for them to be able to access that, put the money where the need is,
Right. We have only a few minutes left. Turkey hunting has become a success story in Michigan, hasn't it?
I watched you watch it snow, 7 feet of snow, and then the next thing you know, there's 12 turkeys on the side of the road. So the turkeys have found a way to, people feed them. I think that's the only way they can get the winter, but I think it become extremely popular in the Upper Peninsula. And, I'm glad, I think people just love turkey hunting, and then they survive in the western and the eastern end, and, it's just another good reason for people to get out and enjoy the outdoors up here.
I did see a report that in 1977, a hunter's chance to get a license was 25%, and now anybody has the opportunity
Over the
for a
counter.
spring hunt.
It's over the counter time. So
that's, and again, not much time left, but can we look forward to a good fishing season?
Well, what's better than opening day of trout season? I mean, I can all remember being born and raised up here, and I'd go brook trout fishing with my father, and it's like, it's in our DNA. And I thought it was going to be a great opener because we had 60-degree weather and hardly any snow. And next thing we know, we get 38 inches of snow in April. Yeah. So what do I think? It doesn't matter if the fish are biting or not. We're all going fishing on opening day and looking forward to it. So.
And you mentioned it's in our DNA, but maybe as a final question, is it continuing? Are we passing these traditions on to younger generations?
I hope so. I mean, it was interesting because we go into Mirror Lake every year up in the Perkby Mountains. We go brook trout fishing up there. And like last year we had, 3 generations of kids going up there. We had little kids going up there and they just loved it. So if we can make the opportunities to pull people away from their electronic boxes and get them in the woods, we can pass that along. But we all have an obligation, and we all have we have to go out of our way to show people what the outdoors is all about in the younger generation. And once they get out there, I think we can pass that on, and I think we can do that.
And we have less than a minute, but I know you've worked on a program to make fishing available for kids.
We have family-friendly fishing. We have, the whole idea is every county, if you want a map, it's under family-friendly fishing. In every county in Michigan, you can press that button and it'll say, like in Wakefield or Ontonagon County, it's Rockland Pond. In Wakefield, it's, I can't remember the lake there, but you can press that button and you can go to that pond, and we're planting bluegills in those lakes. So you can bring a kid with their bobber and a pole and a worm, and non-complicated for them, and catch some fish and have some fun. So look up family-friendly fishing under the DNR website and take your kids fishing.
You're a passionate man, JR. I know you love what you do. You really do.
I appreciate that very much, and I appreciate you giving us the time to talk about it because it's near and dear to our hearts. So.
Well, and I always have more questions than we have time for. So
I appreciate
we'll have you back again.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. Every once in a while it's good to blow off steam about those things in life that are little annoyances or that just kind of make you wonder why. Today is that day. For example, you pull into many gas stations, drive up to the pump, grab the hose, start putting gas in your car, nothing to stop you. Just start pumping. Yet, in many of those same stations, if you want to use the restroom, you have to get a key. So the gas is there for anyone to pump, yet they guard the restrooms. Is there something in there they're trying to stop us from seeing or stealing? Are people absconding with toilet paper? Or how about this? Have you ever tried to do one of those internet chats with a service person who is supposed to help you with a computer or similar problem? You spend a lot of time very carefully writing a message describing your problem in intimate detail and wait for someone to respond. They do. They come back, "Hi, I'm Melinda. How can I help you? Tell me about your problem. At which point I usually start yelling at the computer. Didn't you read what I just painstakingly wrote? Why did I waste my time doing that? Or how about this? Did you ever buy something that you have to put together once you get it home? You know, some assembly required? Have you ever thought of throwing it off the edge of a cliff before you were finished putting it together? The instructions are never complete. You just know the guy who wrote those instructions has never put one together. And in that situation, you're trying to put something together and you don't have the instructions you need. But when you get on an airplane, they give you instructions on how to fasten a seat belt. You know, put the little buckle here and that little buckle there. Give me a break. Isn't this going a little too far? Haven't the airlines heard that cars come with seat belts now? If we followed the lead of the airlines, the people in the clothing business would be selling pants, complete with instructions on how to put them on. You know, grasp firmly with 2 hands, hold about thigh high and 6 inches in front of you, lift one leg. Well, you get the picture. I said at the outset these were little annoyances, but the fact is, it's kind of fun to look at life and see some of the silly stuff we do. Sometimes they're frustrating, but if we keep it in perspective, it's just the way things were meant to be. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Well, it's time for us to wrap it up for another week. The Today Show is standing by and set to go. I want to remind you that our show is available on the internet. You can find it at uppermichigansource.com. If you miss it, want to watch it again, or recommend it to someone else, it will be there and available, usually early on Monday afternoon. Previous episodes are already there. I want to thank J.R. Richardson for joining us this morning. The Natural Resources Commission has a major impact on life in this region, so it's good to find out about the issues and concerns firsthand from someone helping to make those decisions. Thanks for joining us today. Hope I can count on you to be back here again next Sunday morning.